The south confronted soon by north, four winds will move the riders forth. Then Pluto's frieze will bind and hold, for crime of souls in treason's fold. From fear heat flees upon the breath, the wage of death for false truth sold. But joyous are those through whom truth was told. When truth unfolds, the tooth will arrest. Yet he who with scold finds tooth possessed will flames digest when truth burns cold. Return to the foes from times untold, with insect minds of the light that blinds. But so too are souls from times of gold, untethering binds of whom time paroled. Behold, the cries of pride will come to, as foretold, divide the sum, and Libra's fall will rise the bold, compelled by lies the mind controlled. There's a game being played. It's being timed according to heavenly rhythms. It is a war on consciousness, but it's not a war you're familiar with, most of you. Because you're unaware of how consciousness flows through you and how it's bound to rhythms of higher time. So the spiritual war the majority of you feel like you're waging it not with alien gods, not with evil spirits and creatures, not even with your fellow man in front of you, with whom you pick up pitchforks for and guns to slay one another. None of those folk are your enemy. What you're experiencing right now is your projection of the inverse of your own values. You see it somewhere. It's been carefully contrived for you. Everyone has an enemy. And it comes from our inability to process the heat within us intelligently, to create with it. Because we're unaware of how there are polarizing effects that are built within us according to our sacred geometry, understood through the zodiac, that gives us the keys to understand where we lose power. And wherever we lose power is where we build restriction. We fortify our defenses so that we no longer lose power. But in your natal chart, you see these things as the position of Saturn, the aspects to Pluto. You see how they manifest in certain aspects of your life. This is what it means to be awake. This is what it means to be aware. It's not about doing yoga, meditation, and being aware of the fact that you're just aware, or even being alert of the danger you're in. All creatures are aware of danger. What you call being woke or awake, it isn't really being awake. You're alert. Your head is above the water, but you're panicking. You're fortifying your defenses and you're processing this angst, this heat that's urging you by astrological timing to brace for the impact of a massive spiritual glacier that will wreck the foundation of all things that are built upon ideas that are not innately rooted in truth, so that there can be a recalibration of elements to recreate by divine timing and by natural forces a more accurate depiction of the reality we're all subconsciously creating. We are ruled by our shadow. These light workers who feel it's their duty to teach people how to detach, Let them go. Let them detach. They're not in the fight. The ones who get their wisdom from within, who are really just telling themselves what they want to hear and they're repeating the same information. They never really learn anything new from what they channel. They're weak. They feel like through their wisdom, it's better to do nothing. That's ridiculous. We have within our power something to do, something that fulfills prophecy. The majority of you that have been following my work understand what that means. It means the highest form of charity, the charity work we engaged in once, many thousands of years ago, where we mined the gold and we put it in the sky for everyone because it changed light on the planet. It turned the planet itself into an actual battery that harnessed pure plasma power from the sun. And then we took that ether into our bodies. We took that elixir, that manna, into our bodies, and by resonance, we gained power from the field of the earth, which was channeling power from the sun. It was an electrical circuit that we understood in the old sciences of my people. In the old Atlantean sciences. We're in a war right now for consciousness. A consciousness war. And we're not facing a creature that's descending on us that we cannot defeat. But we have to fight smart. There is a collective creature. You see, each of us possess a shadow. Because we're all linked, we possess a collective shadow. And its patterns manifest through different groups and call themselves by many names. And it helps them collectivize the power and concentrate the power of these dark forces that make them feel empowered when really it just processes narcissism. These entities do possess a life of their own. If you don't know what you're doing, you can actually tap in through the subconscious into these demons of apathy and deception that will echo your own thoughts back to you by way of resonance, because it makes you feel good, to tell you that you really have to do nothing. You can believe in whatever it is you want, and you'll go to heaven when it happens. The reality is, our government is running an operation to deceive us, and then to polarize us, and then to clearly define our enemies, and then unleash us on one another. And they're manifesting this through the stars. It's really interesting. What came before was just to ignite us by fear, to steer our heat. Because the sun's going crazy, it's waking up. And with all that new flux, that new energy coming in, we as organic creatures of the solid and liquid element, by way of resonance, process that electricity in accordance with the energetic patterns built into us as living expressions of the planets in torsion. And when we don't understand that science, it's very easy to subconsciously find evidence of that weakness manifesting through us and through synchronicity. We find evidence of this darkness coming toward us. And so we occupy ourselves with the devil. The devil is what steals your power, steals your attention, steals your heat, traps it in a black hole, sucks it dry. You get nothing in return. It's cancerous. It's toxic. It's the consciousness of what's toxic. Angra Mainyu, what brings decay. It is the death, the resistance that brings atomic force to rest, built into the physics in our system because the atmosphere is broken, and so heat has to constantly move. If we find a way to freeze humidity, freeze heat, light will change the way force moves. The elements will change. Everything will change. The way force moves will change. And so the way light changes, the way light moves through us and is expressed through us will also change in accordance with a new pattern that is perfected by the way gold alters magnetic fields. I'm certain that flew over the heads of many, and I have many videos to explain this phenomenon, what I'm trying to share with the world. We have to do something because we're following these leaders who are teaching us how to resonate with their cowardice so that they don't feel like cowards. Or we're following behind leaders that are, by their own values or because they're government operatives, or part of these brotherhoods who understand this phenomenon, this astrological phenomenon, intentionally flaring the passions of the people for the final collapse of civilization so that all the unwanted, those deplorables, can eliminate one another and fight to their death. That's the idea. Nature is going to do this on its own. And it happens when these things come in, these prophecies, when they're fulfilled, they're fulfilled within a microcosm for each one of us through our day-to-day activities and the macrocosm between each of us. We play these forces out in each other's lives. And it's the wars of the gods and the Disney stories and all of the archetypal patterns where there's conflict that is resolved through the natural unfolding of the elements and the way light moves in a magnetic field. We're playing all of these things out subconsciously. And those who study the stars understand that these forces are borrowing us as vessels to express these patterns. So for us to become truly awake, we have to study the stars. We have to study the way these forces are manifesting through us so that we can pay attention to our own psyche to understand how we're contributing to the problem. We're filling this torus, this belly of Gaia, with extreme force. We see it through our actions. We see it in the weather. We see it in the patterns of nature. And it's because the atmosphere is broken. So even us paying attention to these forces and becoming aware of them, we can defeat them inwardly by focusing on what is veiled, strips it of its power. Any predator, anything that seizes power over you based on you not knowing it's there, instantly loses power the moment you become aware of it. That's how you defeat the shadow. That's how it's bound for 1,000 years. But in order for us to eliminate the problem that forces us through electromagnetic polarity to engage our shadow, we have to fix the atmosphere. That's what we need to do. And each of us only need to educate ourselves about this phenomenon. Look into the work of David Hudson, his Ormus. He has I think a 2-hour presentation where he describes the alchemical process through chemistry that he and a fellow used, a prominent scientist who passed away, how they took raw elements and produced what the ancients referred to by many names as mufkets, as soma, I believe, as the beverage of the gods, the mead of the gods, the ambrosia. It's the perfected element of Gaia, of God's creation, that stores light and heat and value perfectly. It is the epitome of value in creation. Why would we not look to creation to give us all the secrets about what God really wants? The geometry, the way light is expressing itself, the way perspective builds through all the archetypal patterns of creation. Why would we not want to, I'm a bit tired of those who are, who proclaim to have the truth, and they're baiting humanity on, and people are getting antsy because they're looking for answers, and no answers are coming from anyone. You got people telling everyone to calm down, throw your head in the sand, and this is how you do it. And you just chill out and you meditate. You got some people who are really trying. They're really trying to, some who aren't so focused on sounding like gurus that they're gassing themselves up through half the video. But that they're actually they're concerned with providing unique, contributing unique solutions and thoughts and ideas as to how to solve the collective problems with our collective psyche, this collective shadow we're all facing on a grand scale in the macrocosm, and in each one of our lives in the microcosm, and how we're creating it. Because it's us. It really is us. And you have some folk who are just baiting people along, proclaiming to have the answers, and you really don't get anything out of them, and they're hoping no one really challenges them on it, and they attack so vehemently those who ask original questions, who have questions that aren't being answered because they don't fit the narrative. It's disgusting. I'm appalled at the leadership in this community. It needs to change. But in order for us to engage this fight, we need to understand that we are fighting this war on consciousness. We're fighting a game with rules we only vaguely understand. We really need to look to these astrologers for them to teach us, what's going on, how we're subconsciously being urged by these planets, and how we are just acting out the elements, acting out these forces, these archetypal forces, like cells in a body. We think we're making choices. It's really these forces are acting through us. We have the ability to exercise choice to bring peace to the gods, peace to their energies through us, not by waiting on alien saviors to do it for us. No alien saviors are coming. We possess the science. We possess the fortitude of once we become clear about the nature of our fight, it's really a no-brainer. That's what awareness is, self-awareness. That's what being awake is all about. It's about understanding the power of the Creator working through you by way of resonance with all the powers in heaven to paint the physical manifestation of that pattern here in the earth. That's what we have to learn. It isn't about how much you meditate. You'll never figure it out that way. It's a real legitimate actual science, and you can see evidence of it everywhere. All the patterns of creation expressed through the sigils in the zodiac are everywhere. In every bug, in every animal, in every leaf, there's an expression of thermodynamics. And the sigils of the zodiac, they're all expressive. They're all demonstrating, these arcane sigils demonstrating, what force and momentum are doing in a magnetic field. These kings, the Sumerians, you ever wonder why they had these kingdoms that were tens, hundreds of thousands of years old? If we have cyclical disasters that come every 12,000 years, how is it they were able to rule for hundreds of thousands? It's because the magnetic web of the planet was different. And this is in so many of our stories, but you got some folk who are intentionally blind to this, and it amazes me. It's bizarre. So here I am, trying to play the role of this Aslan character, this Leo force, the voice of passion and inspiration, to bring back the fight in people, to give them a way forward, to make them realize that their claws lie in their wisdom and in the science of our ancestors, and not with brute force against an enemy that is lying in wait and polarizing us and trying to force us and goad us into a state of chaos so that it can justify an absolute crackdown by military might with, by poisoning the Nile, injecting it. The first wave, some people speculate on whether it was legitimate or not. Something went out. And I said in the beginning, I felt like it had something to do with a nanotech. But they're talking about a second wave. And they're going to use the public unrest to really unleash something nasty this time, I feel. In Cancer season, it's a really good time to poison the Nile. So be careful. And learn the real nature of the fight.